at the gut and the brain, so it's been thrown around a lot more now. It's getting more and more popular. The gut-brain connection or the gut-brain axis, GBA, all of that sort of stuff. Both of them are essentially intimately very, very much linked. Okay, so I want you to imagine between the brain and the gut, there's like a massive telephone pole, and they're talking to each other the whole time. So whatever signals the gut is giving off to the brain's receiving, and whatever the signals the brain's giving off to the gut is receiving, essentially. So when I started to really dig deep into this, a lot of this stuff, sort of back in my first business, and understanding the emotion code and what that all means, and then sort of going through my own journey with gut health, then I think it was just through research by chance that I was looking at depression. I was like, surely, like, why is everyone depressed? Like, what is that? So I looked at it from a physical point of view and understanding our microbiome. So obviously the different types of gut bacteria that we have, the diversity of it or lack of, can often dictate what mood we are going to be in daily. And can also dictate the types of decisions that we make. So if I go back to, I guess, the times where I was quite low about money and all of this sort of stuff, I looked at just exactly how I was managing those low points, and I managed it through alcohol, I managed it through takeouts, I managed it through lack of food, and the foods that I did eat was quite high in sugar, and that was consistent to a point. It was my chronic strategy every single time. So you can imagine if the gut was constantly fed the same thing over and over again, where's the diversity? There's no versatility in that. Therefore, the good bacteria often goes like this, and then the bad bacteria is like being fed with sugar, essentially. So the more your gut cells are exposed to sugar, all different types of sugar, by the way, it's more for them to breed on, build their colonies, build their armies inside sort of your digestive system, your digestive tract, to a point where it's like, oh crap, my knees hurt, or my joints hurt, or my skin's flared up. And then we end up trying to deal with them separately, but it's actually not. It does stem from one area, and it's just outbreaking in all sorts of different areas. And to touch your point, what you said earlier about, I suppose we're talking about fulfillment in life generally. If we're not feeling fulfilled, we try and fill it with all sorts of crap. And by crap, I mean, you know, the easiest things that we can do. Maybe we jump from one relationship to another. Maybe it's just sex. Maybe it's like adrenaline stuff to get our adrenaline pumping, the happy stuff that we want to achieve in that short space of time. Maybe it's drugs. Maybe it's alcohol. Maybe it's over-exercising, because that can also cause a lot of problems and inflammation in the body if there's too much oxidative stress going on. All sorts of things which ultimately, between the gut and the brain, causes a disbalance, which means it causes dysbiosis. Dysbiosis meaning, in simple terms, imbalanced bacteria. So therefore, the seesaw's like all over the place, and it's not kind of levelled in that aspect. So your nervous system's constantly fight, flight, or freezing. Your neurotransmitters all over the place, and therefore your gut microbes and all the chemicals are just firing left, right, and centre. So essentially, when we're looking at the link between depression and gut health, you've got to imagine that what are you doing physically is affecting how this is responding to how it's responding here. So if we're waking up feeling sluggish, and we feel sluggish, chances are there's some sluggish hormones going on, and they're just not functioning in the best way that they should be. So yeah, so it's how do we take the pressure off is what I'm trying to say. How do we reduce the feelings of that depressiveness, the low mood, and how do we increase more sort of uplifting thoughts, uplifting choices, and essentially it's not sort of popping a pill down your throat and thinking, yeah, this is going to be amazing, because even just that one little tablet, an antibiotic, can change your gut bacteria for an entire year, which we don't even realise.
Yeah.
because there's a lot of chemicals just in that one pill.
Yeah, it's interesting. Again, when I was preparing for this, I was looking at obviously the effect that antibiotics can have on the brain.
Yeah.
Via the gut, of course. And it was saying something like, if you've ever had more than 5 courses of antibiotics in your life, it can cause, severe long-term or lifelong depression. And I was thinking, well, how many courses of antibiotics did I have in the 18 years that I was on them because I had acne?
Right.
And I thought, well, I probably on average, I probably had 10 courses a year. Over 18 years, it's probably 180 courses of antibiotics. And they were saying that 5 could potentially cause lifelong depression.
Yeah.
Crazy.
How did you feel about that when you read that?
I just thought, wow, I must be quite fortunate because I've never had depression.
Right.
Not even for a day. I don't think I've ever had depression. I mean, yes, I might feel sad, like family dog died or something. But you grieve and you get over it. You move on.
Yeah.
But one thing I want to come back to.
Yeah.
So someone might be listening to this and they might be thinking, what do you mean the gut and the brain is linked? Can you explain a bit more about how they're linked?
How they're linked. So in what aspect from what I just said before to now?
So I'm talking how they're physically linked.
Yeah.
Like the vagus nerve, for instance.
Yeah, so you've got the vagus nerve. Essentially, the vagus nerve has about 100 million trillion cells within it that are all messengers that, like I said, there's messages from the gut to the brain and then the brain to the gut. So they fire up a lot of signals. Even understanding the circadian rhythm, meaning your sleep patterns, is another way to understand the gut-brain link. So if anyone's listening to this right now that is struggling with sleep, as an example, or your brain doesn't seem to switch off in that aspect, then you know that there's some form of communication going on between the gut and the brain, and sleep's a very good indicator of that. Some people are waking up in the middle of the night multiple times, going for a wee when it's not actually normal to do that. And it tells you, it's actually telling you that the gut-brain connection is actually telling you to look at specific organs. And I teach a lot of this in the gut intuition as to, if you're waking up at specific times, we've got to look at different organs of the body.
Yeah.
If we're waking up between 1 and 3, we've got to look at the liver here. Because essentially that's where the liver's sort of doing its detoxification processes. It's got about 200 processes to do every day. But add that on top with heavy meals and alcohol and, working both candles at, both ends, that puts a lot of pressure on the body. So the gut-brain connection is a very clever system. And if you look at the digestive system, if you look at the gut itself, it's actually a very independent system when it's working really, really, really well. The problem lies is in the normal day-to-day stuff that we do. So, for example, diet, the amount of sugar, how we're moving, even mould in our homes can affect us as well. But I think that's a podcast for another day.
Which I've already done, by the way.
Yeah, there you go. And so many other things like stress, how we're managing our stress levels, essentially affects how the gut-brain connection works as well. So yeah, it's just, I think one of the questions I was really asking, can gut health cause or worsen depression? Or is it the other way around? And I think it works both ways because of how it's a two-way communication, it's a two-way relationship, which is constantly getting divorced all the time.